We're inching closer to the potential June 1st debt ceiling deadline. That's my birthday. Taking a hit detour on Friday, but President Biden, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy have agreed to speak later today. But Kevin McCarthy tweeting last night that the talks have gone backwards. President Biden said they're moving forward. He's talking about revenues. We're going to break it down. Biden, he's flying back home today from the G7 meetings in Japan. Let's bring in our panel. It is Whitley Yates. Can we bring up the prompter, please? Whitley Yates and Jason Nichols with us. Whitley Yates is a Project 21 member, publicist, political activist. Jason Nichols, senior lecturer, African American Studies, University of Maryland, College Park. And also our special guest, distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum. He is back with us. So I'll start off with you, Jason. What do you think? Where do we go from here? You got the Democrats blaming the Republicans. The Republicans, saying the Democrats simply want to spend too much. So what happens? It seems like we're not going to make a deal before June 1st.
Well, first of all, if I don't talk to you on June 1st, happy birthday, Lydia.
Thank you.
I'll just say that, this is something that shouldn't be happening. And we know that even former President Trump was clear that we should not negotiate about paying our bills. This could cost us 8 million jobs. This could cost a lot of people a lot of retirement savings. It could cost our veterans their benefits and our elderly their Social Security benefits. This is a real problem. Now, the sticking point that people are talking about is work requirements for SNAP and Medicaid. There are already work requirements for SNAP. We know you have to work 20 hours a week to get SNAP anyway, and the majority of SNAP and Medicaid recipients work. So this is really something that I think Democrats and Republicans are finding a big chasm in between. I think the president has put forth a budget that says that we're going to cut $3 trillion in a decade, and we can raise new revenues by taxing the wealthy. And of course, I think Republicans are trying to put the onus on people who have less money, people who are trying to get food stamps and Medicaid. So we're really in a tough situation. I'm not sure that we're going to find a relief other than if the president tries some unconventional means, which would be invoking the 14th Amendment.
Whitley, your response to that?
No, I think this is completely asinine. Democrats have come up with no plan, but spin, spin, spin. And when the Republicans did come up with a plan, the president was against it. Not only was he against it, he had refused to meet. And so it's great that he's meeting now. But as we're seeing, the debt ceiling is looming. What needs to happen is that the country needs to go back to pre-pandemic spending levels, because we're no longer in COVID, and we need to reduce as much spending as possible so that we can cut inflation. I don't understand why this is such a hard thing to grasp, or why the president is currently so against it.
Thane Rosenbaum, President Biden, he ran as a moderate, but he certainly is governing like the squad. I mean, you have Cori Bush asking for reparations. So that's the concern here. He just wants to spend, spend, spend as if he's a progressive instead of the moderate that people thought they elected.
That's precisely right, Lydia. That's why, remember what was happening in pre-pandemic spending levels. There was a Republican in the White House. So to return to that, we have to roll back in a completely different progressive agenda. Biden ran as a moderate, has been governing as a progressive. He is beholden to the progressives on multiple levels. We've seen this throughout his presidency, whether it's the Green New Deal, whether it's the endless repeatings of the words white supremacy, right? I mean, there's endless examples of a moderate who is saying the script, reciting the script of the progressives, and he's boxed in. What he's essentially committing himself to do is to tax the rich and to put no ceiling. There's no ceiling if you're talking about reparations, if you're talking about the Green New Deal. There's so many things that are in the lineup of the progressive agenda.
It really is, and it's just more money going out of our pockets. I mean, how much more? Whitley, and I'll ask you, Jason, both of you, we have 2 minutes left, so I'll get a minute from each of you. Whitley, what do you think about the president coming out and saying that the greatest threat facing our nation is white supremacy and not the border crisis, not the fentanyl crisis, not the inflation or the debt ceiling or anything like that? It's white supremacy.
I think it's a progressive talking point, and I personally think that President Biden is out of touch with the American people and kitchen table issues that everyone is worried about. We're worried about inflation, we're worried about the cost of our food, we're worried about the cost of gas, and all of these different things that are touching us each and every day. I think that his head is so far up the progressives' agenda that he cannot see what the American people actually need.
And Jason, your rebuttal, what do you think?
Well, the president has put forth a budget that deals with kitchen table issues. And if you're really interested in the economy, then really what you should do is raise the debt limit, as we've done every time since 1960. And we did 3 times under President Trump. So I would definitely say that that's not the case. As far as a terror threat, domestic terror threat, that's what the FBI says. That's what the DOJ says. So he is saying what the experts are saying about the terror threats within our country. And we've seen it over and over, whether it's Buffalo, where people that look like me and Whitley were targeted over and over.
You cannot say, you can't just point to like a single, like isolated incident, and we know how politicized the DOJ and the FBI are. So you have to admit, Jason, it is 100% this progressive talking point. He's pandering. And the fact, I mean, I thought I would be offended as that he was saying this at a historically black college, to say like, oh, that's all they care about. These are really smart, educated people with these amazing degrees. And he's like, oh yeah, be afraid, be very afraid of the boogeyman, the white supremacist. You know, I'm not saying there's not white supremacy, but it's certainly not the greatest threat facing our nation.
So if I can respond really quickly, what I'll say is that your other guest just said he says it all the time. So apparently he's not just saying it to a black audience at a black college. The other thing is he was talking about terror threats. And when we look at terror threats up to this point and terror threats that the DOJ says could come in the future, they come from white nationalists. So he's not telling people to be afraid.
Whitley, I know you're dying because we're seeing how many terrorists, their potential terrorists, they're catching coming across the border on the terror
what Joe
watch list.
Biden is not saying, the thing that he's not talking about the immigration crisis that's hitting black communities, specifically in Chicago and in New York. He's not talking about how fentanyl is decimating our country.
Yes.
He's not talking about how he's attempting to restore the economy. There are so many things that he's not talking about, and the talking points that he is talking about are America.
I love you, Whitley. I love you, Jason Nichols. Thank you guys so much. And Thane Rosenbaum, we'll be talking to you again real soon. A real spirited conversation there. And that's what we're about here at Newsmax, getting everybody's side of the story.